Secure some price for Thursday, June 4th, 2026 presentation of Bet365. Check out Bet365's 3-goal early payout. When your team goes up 3, you get paid. It's that simple. Download the app today. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Matt Securus alongside Blake Price, Mike Rogerson, hitting switches and conducting things. On the day the Vancouver Canucks named the 23rd head coach in franchise history, it is a familiar name, former player, and of course, Abbotsford Canucks championship-winning head coach, Mr. Manny Malhotra. So here we go. We got new presence. We got a new GM. We got a new head coach. Yeah, he's got to round out his staff. Yeah, we're waiting for an AGM to replace the role that Ryan Johnston has left. But really, beyond this date, we're now talking about players again, Blake.
Yeah. So a little bit of tweaking of the bench and AGM, but it's going to be about the players going into the draft. I mean, the next 27 days includes the draft and the opening of free agency. Not that the Canucks are expected to be major players and buying big-name UFAs. There aren't such things this year, but they do have a couple holes to fill. Like they do need another, probably a veteran defenseman, a P.O. Joseph type. And
decision on Teddy Bluger, of course.
And there still may be more holes created if they happen to do any draft floor deals. So we don't even know what their shopping plans could be in free agency. We'll see.
Let's get to our top story. It's brought to you by Yellow Dog Brewing, Neighborhood Brewing, Foolish Winery. Manny speaks on Caleb, on Pettersson, on style of play, on being the first South Asian head coach in the NHL, and on motivating a team that will lose. The 23rd coach in club history, another former Canuck, much like his superiors in the GM and president's chairs, said he is committed to incremental daily improvements, that he's big on energy and body language, and that tough times will reveal character. He said he didn't want to dwell on ex-Canucks running the organization now because today's players tune out when conversations begin with, "Back when I played," and that his job is to be respectful of their own journeys and have them discover the joy of hockey and the privilege of playing in the National Hockey League. He believes in finding and maintaining positivity, that that's part of growth and development, and that he will introduce a structure with a clear understanding of expectations, competition, and accountability in the Canucks room. Overall, just your thoughts.
Also emphasize playing with speed.
Style of play.
Which is going to be interesting because this isn't a team overly blessed with speed. So you wonder if his managers took note of that, and we'll try to give him a little bit of that to work with. I mean, he came as advertised. We do know him fairly well already from his time as a player and from the limited availabilities we've seen him as an Abbotsford head coach as well. So I don't think a ton got revealed today. I think the rubber will ultimately hit the road when we get the first question answered, and that is his son playing on the team? That'll be the first sort of item off the to-do list. And then we'll see them a little bit later with when they actually hit the ice.
Overall, I thought it was very much in lockstep with Henrik Daniel Sedin, Ryan Johnston, not just in terms of the organizational alignment, but in terms of the broad strokes, a little shorter on specifics, but very clear-eyed in terms of the job ahead, the challenges ahead, because we do know it is going to be a long road here. How long? We'll see. But Manny very much nodded to the challenge before him and what needs to be done.
And to be clear, I think the lack of detail is just a now thing. I think once
Yeah,
we're
I
into
think so.
training
I
camp,
agree.
I think he's going to be open to divulging a few of the state secrets.
Yeah. So let's get to the elephant in the room. His son, Caleb, a top prospect for the 2026 NHL entry draft. And, of course, there is a very real chance that the Canucks select him number 3 overall. Probably one of the more amusing parts of today's press conference, Manny revealed that there is already a distinction in his household between dad and between coach. Here's Manny on the possibility of coaching his son.
It was a part of the conversations that we had prior to the hiring process, and I fully understand the story there, and I understand the positives and negatives of it. But with so many things I've learned, it's a bit of a fool's errand to plan out things that quite haven't happened yet. So if that situation were to happen, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we've had a very clear understanding in my household that first and foremost, I am dad, who also happens to be a professional hockey coach. So when we are talking about hockey, there's a decision by my kids if they want to talk to dad or coach. So we will continue to have that rule in my house, and it's served us well as a family.
Very good answer. He was asked a follow-up, and he did say Caleb would be treated the same as any player if he becomes a Canuck, and that the young man already has the ability to separate the personal from the professional. Here's Manny.
Again, I don't want to go too far down that road. If it happens, I would treat him just as any other player. And I know people would say, well, you can't because it's your son. And I do understand the challenges there. The one thing, going back to that rule of do you want to talk to dad or do you want to talk to coach, when Caleb brings up hockey to me, he always wants to talk to coach. I've seen his growth over the last couple of years and what they've done in Brantford and the evolution of his game. I think he would have the wherewithal and the ability to separate the two at the next level.
I think that the time spent on the topic today is going to lead people to believe, oh, they're really thinking heavily about Caleb Malhotra. But I will caution against people leaping to that conclusion just because these are pretty good speakers, you know, and I think they're going to give you thoughtful answers on most, if not all, the questions that you ask. So, hey, these are thorough answers he's giving to the possibility, even though he did give the little preamble of, I don't want to go far down this road. But I do want to say I don't know that good answers to those questions, Matt, is necessarily indicative that they're going to go with Malhotra.
You told me last week, based on the way Ryan Johnston answered similar questions, that you had resolved in your mind you don't think they're taking him.
I don't think they're taking him.
Okay. So the one part of that answer that I want to highlight is I do understand the challenges there. So he acknowledged it. He didn't expand on it. I think one of the unanswered questions that is left is, Manny, what about the other 22 guys in the room if Caleb is a Vancouver Canuck? And, of course, Caleb is going to Boston University next year, so this would not be an immediate thing. There's no guarantees that Caleb would make the Vancouver Canucks the year thereafter if, in fact, he is drafted by Vancouver. But obviously, if he's the pick on draft day, this gets very real, even if it is in the distance, and this becomes a unique situation in the Vancouver Canucks dressing room that is fraught with peril. And, of course, we know how that Vancouver dressing room has been a source of dysfunction and a source of consternation over the last few years. Malhotra's biggest challenge, of course, will be getting more out of Elias Pettersson, the $11.6 million would-be first-line center who has played like a second-line center for 2+ seasons. That, of course, if he remains a Vancouver Canuck through this summer and he gets to training camp in September. Manny was asked about it and said he and his staff, and there's no named staff yet, are up for the challenge.
To answer your question, I have not spoken with him yet. And as I was saying before, with every player, my goal is to help him find his game. And we all know what he's capable of doing, the talent that he possesses, and the ability that he has on the ice. One of the things that I love most about coaching is finding that connection with players and finding what makes them tick and how to get the best out of them. So it's on myself and the staff to help him find his best game, and to be the player that we know he's capable of being.
What'd you hear there?
I think all these guys are such good persons, that I think they have confidence in what they've and how they've navigated life to this point, that they're going to be able to talk to Elias Pettersson about his struggles. And some of that is confidence inspiring. If you're a fan hearing that, some of it is, oh boy, they don't know what they're walking into.
Fair.
So kudos for wanting to put in the work to try to unlock Elias Pettersson. I don't know that you will find that skeleton key that opens it up. But I mean, in the absence of a miracle trade that is fair to the Vancouver Canucks, that's all you got to go on.
I love two parts about the answer. Number one, that he took responsibility for it, saying it's on myself and my staff. Didn't kick it into Elias's court. We've seen what kicking it into Elias's court has wrought in the past. And the fact that he says, I love finding connections with players.
Yeah.
And if you heard our interview with Max Lapierre a couple of days ago, it is very clear that Manny goes out of his way to connect with everyone in the orbit of an NHL franchise. I think he has that going for it, and I agree with everyone who said, as we asked the poll question a couple of days ago, can Manny fix Elias? And many of you said only Elias can fix Elias, and I think that's a very fair point. But if not Manny, then whom? And that's why I think they're sort of in a catch-22 here, because another year of 55 points and, looking like the aggrieved, off-put loner, grumbling at questions and all that, I think that only does more damage to the asset. Our colleague Elijah Ford has a story coming up on Canucks Army about Manny's style of play in Abbotsford. Spoke to one of the members of Manny's staff down here. He, needless to say, was asked about style of play. You knew this question was coming up. Here's what he had to say.
From a system standpoint, I think the teams that are structured in a way that the guys understand what is expected of them are usually the most successful. In terms of how we want to play, if you look around the NHL, the game's not getting any slower. So it's going to be a very up-tempo style game, high energy, high tempo. But when you look at the teams that I've coached and the way I want them to play, they are going to be very structured. They are going to be very intense, with a very high premium on execution and doing things the right way. That for me is the way I want it to look, and those things are going to be implemented on the daily again in practice. How do we practice? How hard do we practice? How intense are our practices? Will dictate a lot of how we're going to look on game night.
So a few things there, and of course Ryan Johnston talked on this last week about, or the other day, about Manny's structure in all three zones in Abbotsford, that was appealing to him. Great to hear up-tempo, high energy, and speed. I think he's on the right track there. He's absolutely right that the league is not getting any slower. When he talks about system structured in terms of what guys, understand and expectations, I mean, I got a little bit of Rod Brindamore vibes there. I mean, the Carolina Hurricanes have specific rules. They want to shoot the puck in the offensive zone from just about everywhere. They want to flip the puck out of the defensive zone and up into the neutral zone and flip the puck in on the dump and chase. They want to pass the puck across lines. They don't want a whole lot of puck carrying, puck transportation. It's sort of a way to compensate for perhaps the lack of gifted offensive players. Some might argue it's held Carolina a little bit back in the past. Hey, they're in the Cup final. They may prove to have hit the right balance.
It's hockey communism, and you do
a little bit.
You tend to tamp down your stars in that system.
Yeah. Now, to be clear, that's what Brindamore is doing. We'll see what Manny is doing. Mm-hmm. Look, when you talk about energy, when you talk about tempo and intensity, these are the sorts of things that don't really require a lot of natural-born talent, right? I guess speed, to a degree, does. But basically, coach the coachables here. It is very difficult to coach a player how to score goals. We've had this conversation for 15 years, Blake. But effort is something you can control. Body position is something you can control. Stick position is something you can control. Intensity is something you can control. And I would suspect that in the early days here for the Vancouver Canucks, as they go into a National Hockey League season with one of the, let's face it, less talented rosters in the NHL, that all of these things are going to be the benchmarks for Manny and his staff.
You may not even get a hockey IQ roster that can fully understand a complicated system, which is why, and I don't think he was meaning this as a barb to the outgoing coach in Adam Foote, but the fact that he led with an understandable system, I think the subconscious might have got the better of him, knowing that was a chief complainant of players in the room, that the defensive system was not fully understood or complied with under Adam Foote. And I wonder if that was the subconscious of Manny knowing, okay, that's what we really have to address, is get everybody on the same page with these systems, that nobody's wondering where they should have been, or was that your guy, which is what we seemed to see last year, a lot of Keystone cops in the defensive zone.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's nowhere to go but up there. I mean, truly an unqualified NHL head coach, or at least an NHL system that didn't work and that he wasn't able to adapt. Now, there were no pretensions about the path forward. Manny understands that losing awaits. And he was asked about how he'll motivate a group that's going to have a lot of difficult nights going forward. Here's what he said.
I think one of the points that you've heard RJ recite over and over is we're not evaluating guys on wins and losses. I fully understand that the NHL is based off of you need to win games. Our focus is on the process of just getting better. And one huge part of that for me is, as I said before, it's really easy to come to the rink in a great mood when things are going well and you're scoring points and teams winning games. But trying to find that positivity and find that energy when things aren't going well is a part of growth and development. So for me, that's part of the task, is helping guys find the joy in hockey. The NHL is a pretty good league, by all accounts. It's a pretty special place to play. There's only 700 some odd players that get to do it. So it's an absolute privilege. So giving the guys the understanding and helping them understand that this is a fun league to be in. and you have to enjoy the moments. And there will be some good times, there will be some bad times, but the privilege of being an NHL hockey player is all the motivation and all the joy you need to come into the rink every day. It's, I keep talking about we're going to grind, we're going to work, we're going to evolve, but that's all rooted in finding the joy in the game and helping the guys have fun out there and enjoy practices and enjoy the grind and enjoy the brace. So that, I don't think the guys really need me to come in and give a rah speech and try to motivate them. It's helping them find the joy that's already here in being an NHL hockey player.
Well, and he certainly lived it, because there was a point in his career where he was on the street and he was a PTO before he joined the Vancouver Canucks. So being appreciative of the privilege of playing in the NHL and that deriving the joy from being in the best hockey league in the world, I think is fantastic messaging.
I was also going to say that he was a disappointment. Like, he was a 7th overall pick, and he did not ultimately play like a 7th overall pick. People thought he had more offense to give than he ultimately was able to provide. And so I think, and he says he doesn't want to use the "when I played" stuff, but it's still going to come out in messaging and treatment of the players. He's been there with doubts, in hard times and dark and he found a way through it, found a way to enjoy the game. And let's face it, there were not a lot of smiles before like the 65 game mark last year.
Oh my God, there haven't been a lot of smiles for the last couple of years, Blake, and for most of the last 12 years. And I love that part about finding positivity as a part of growth and development. So no sour pusses, no Eeyores in the corner.
No.
Right? No angry guy throwing shit around the room and barking at people, and we saw that here as well. What I will say is that's quite easy to say on the front end of a coaching tenure in June. It is a little more difficult in practice when you've lost 5 in a row, 6 in a row, got your doors blown off at home.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be those moments, and I think the balance that Manny is going to have to find, if this is going to be part of the macro messaging going forward, is to make sure that, okay, we want to be joyful. We want to be appreciative of the privilege of playing in the National Hockey League. We want good body language and energy and all of that. But there comes a point where losing cannot be acceptable. And so picking his spots in terms of when to play the heavy and when there's got to be a little bit more of an edge to a practice, to an intermission talk, whatever the case may be, because that's something that he's got to guard. He's absolutely right that the focus is on the process of getting better. That is 100% right, more so than the wins and losses here in the early going. But there gets to be a point where you can't just have a bunch of guys happy and giddy to be there when the losses are coming a little too easy. And we saw the losses come a little too easy last year. That tent folded pretty quickly and pretty voluntarily on the part of a lot of Canucks that he inherits.
Well, again, he is a rookie NHL head coach, but he's not a rookie head coach. He's just come off 2 seasons, one of which was a fabulous success, and one of them was horrific. This year was really, really bad. And so he has been in this very situation this year with Abbotsford of loss upon loss upon loss, and with a lot of the similar issues that the parent club has had with injuries galore, disappointing seasons for some players. He's managed those dynamics. Those dynamics don't change the one level up. I think the dynamics are the same. The ramifications are different. Obviously, the stakes are different. But I think he's now experienced what it's like to coach a very good team and a very bad team, and he'll use both of those experiences, I think.
And lastly, for today on Manny, and he gave some other answers today that we'll get to on tomorrow's program about the young defenseman, about Atu Ratu, and some others, captaincy. Manny Malhotra is the first South Asian and Punjabi head coach in NHL history. And he gets the gig. I mean, it could have been any of the 32 NHL franchises, right?
Mm-hmm.
He gets the gig in a market that has a large South Asian and Punjabi community. Not his first rodeo with this question, because it came up when he signed with the Canucks in free agency all those years ago, 2010. So he was asked about it as a player here, and really the view remains the same answer he used to give us a decade and a half ago about holding that unique position as a Punjabi NHL player in a market with a massive Punjabi population. Here's Manny.
When I think about it, I understand the implications and how special it is, and very similar to when I was here as a player, I gave the same answer. My first thought and my foremost thought is that I just want to be the best coach that I can be. At the time, it was I wanted to be the best player I can be, not the best coach of South Asian descent. That continues to be my mindset. When I step back and look at the big picture and you put it into context, I see the importance and I understand the importance that for the South Asian community, it is a big deal. And I have incredible support from them out in Abbotsford. Constantly people saying how proud they were to see somebody in my background getting to the heights that I was. So I understand the importance of it, but I don't put a great deal of emphasis on it. My number one goal is to be the best coach I can be for the Vancouver Canucks.
And that reflected a little bit his answer as well on how important it is for all of them to be ex-Canucks. And he's just trying to play it really down the middle and sort of, say, listen, let's just focus on the job. Like that's a thing. Yes, we were all Canucks. Yes, it's a thing. I'm of South Asian descent, but I'm just going to do the job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think he strikes the balance between understanding that representation is important, and I'm not the least bit surprised that he's had people approach him and talk about just how proud they are to see him elevate into this role. But also, judge me as a coach, regardless of descent, color of skin, or any of that. So, look, I would stop short of master class because of, for the most part, a lack of detail and specifics on the answers. I'm not necessarily sure I would grade it at the height that I graded the Sedins and Ryan Johnston's opening press conference, but I think he did a very, very good job. And I think he has further instilled confidence in Canucks fans with today's session, and also is going to be a part of, turning the page on what was a most distasteful chapter in Canucks history. So I think there's some confidence that has been imbued into the fan base here, although it's a very wise fan base, and Manny alluded to this at different points today, and understands the path forward as well. He's got a lot of people behind him here in this province, and I think he will for some time. I think there's going to be a long honeymoon period here with Manny Malhotra, which was not afforded his predecessor of Adam Foote for reasons that were partly due to Foote, partly due to the management group, and partly just the way the Vancouver Canucks have been run.
Well, the expectations. I think the fact that he's been given a leash on a long rebuild, Manny Malhotra that is, means that it's going to be a while till he's judged by wins and losses. That's a freeing feeling for a coach, I think.
But also, I think that ownership has finally greenlit a rebuild is to his immense benefit, right? Like, I would bet that Adam Foote, that Bruce Boudreau, that Rick Tocchet, that Travis Green would have all relished the ability to come in clean slate. Okay, we're rebuilding. We know it's going to be a long journey compared to what they were thrown in. Oh, let's try and keep adding young players and keep an eye and mind to the future, but really we want to win now. And it's playoffs or bust each and every season. Lastly, on the Manny topic, Elliot Friedman reporting that if the Canucks had not given him the job, they would have lost him, that the Los Angeles Kings, searching for a head coach, was a team that asked for permission from the Canucks to speak to Manny. So there you go. On top of hiring a bright young NHL head coach, you have possibly kept him away from a division rival in the Pacific.
And that's why the cronyism claims, for those few that may make that claim, he doesn't pass muster for me. This is a guy that was being hunted down by other teams in the National Hockey League. He had a resume long enough to get this job, and the Canucks were right to give it to him.
He had served the appropriate apprenticeship through 2 assistant stints in Vancouver and Toronto, and then the head coaching stint in Abbotsford.
Let's talk about Yellow Dog Brewing, shall we, and what they've got up their sleeve for this month, which is to say a Be Cool Raspberry Sour from Neighborhood Brewing. It's the first ever super tall can. It's the Raspberry Sour, which is tart, juicy, effortlessly smooth, bursting with fresh raspberry and a lively punch of acidity. It's a sour that's bright, playful, just the right amount of cheeky. Being cool never tasted so good. Now, drinking it doesn't make one cool, but it goes a lot of the way. I think they're saving Patrick Johnston and Matt Sakaris if they have a Be Cool Raspberry Sour.
Well, here's the thing. Patrick Johnston, columnist for the Province and Postmedia, when I asked him to join yesterday, I said, it'll be about 12:30-ish. Look at this, PJ. It is 12:31. We missed our post by a moment, but let's bring Patrick in, who took in today's proceedings at Rogers Arena and joins us with, as always, pithy thoughts on Canucks matters. How are you?
Well, first of all, let's be clear, Blake. It's my wife that likes sours.
Oh, okay. Well, then she's already cool, though. She doesn't need saving.
It's true. It's true. And I will say a side note. Long ago, made a cake for Manny Malhotra's son, Caleb, at age 4. It was a Spider-Man cake. And when I showed Manny the photo that she got with him all these years ago, he was there a Spider-Man cake? And sure enough, I could swipe down and said, here it is. And he was like, that's the one. So
his wife, Candace, is a master cake maker on top of being very handy with timepieces as well. She's a very talented lady. We love seeing her, especially at the Nat in the summer. Let's move on to the matter at hand. Overall thoughts and impressions, how do you think he did?
I mean, spoke well spoken, all the things. I think that if you obviously dealt with Manny when he was a player, but also when he was a coach, this was a guy that had good answers. And so polished, sharp, professional. But at the end of the day, he's a coach, and how the team performs on the ice will be the ultimate answer, won't it? That to me is what I was left thinking about. I was like, listen, he did well at Abbotsford. He certainly did well as an assistant coach in the NHL. But at the end of the day, this is about what he's able to do with his team and how he gets them to perform and how he gets them to buy in and how he, has his star players understanding the challenges in front of them and so on and so on and so on. And that will be shown on the ice in October.
We were just kicking this around, Peach. I think you might have been listening in, but how long do you think he has until the market starts worrying about wins and losses? Honeymoon period, duration thereof. Yeah. What says you?
Well, I think it's a tricky one, right? Because you had to frame last year in the sense of, okay, are they going to finally throw in the towel and move to a rebuild, which they did. Okay, what does this mean? This means the team is going to struggle for results, but how are they playing? And certainly for a while, going into the deadline, there was a lot of angst about what was going to happen. And then we got to the other side and we saw mostly nights where the guys were skating hard and trying hard and giving fans something to at least feel emotionally good about. As long as he's able to keep doing that with his team, and listen, he's a coach. He is going to try to coach to win, right? Like that is inherently what he is here to do. I think he's got a season, you've got a season to see how it goes. And Adam Foote had a hard time, partly because the team stank from the beginning, but was also sold as something they never proved to be, which is a team that we thought was going to contend for the playoffs. And by the middle of the season, it was clear that was not going to happen, and the captain was gone, and on and on and on. So, failing some sort of catastrophic further failure, and I don't see where that would be, it is hard to see people really going sour before the end of the season. And, realistically, you need to see growth going into that second season. In season 2, if things are not improving, if things are not looking better, then I certainly think people will start calling for change or getting frustrated or what have you.
Is it misplaced to get too excited about the continuing development of the young players that he had in Abbotsford that he hasn't seen for a year? That it's easy to point to that and say, hey, they could get even better now that they got their whisperer back. Is that too easy to make that leap?
Well, I think realistically, you have to remember that star players are the guys are going to be star players. Linus Karlsson is a great story, right? And has proved himself to be a very competent NHL winger, right? And maybe he could grow into slightly more than he is already, and maybe Manny will have a factor in that. But I would say that Karlsson did pretty well on his own right. Max Sasson is a fourth line winger, really. Look at the defenseman, Kirill Kudryavtsev. Maybe he's a factor as a 5'6", Elias Pettersson, the defenseman. I think it's a good thing for him. I think in general, the defense are going to benefit from this. That was a big concern of mine. Certainly, I know people around the league were starting to wonder what's going to happen if they don't make a change here. What happens to sort of the mentality of these young players? So yeah, that to me more than anything is where we should focus on what this coaching change means. It's not so much are these guys going to turn into first line star players, which I just don't think happens, but is it that they become highly competent depth players that do set the base for the rest of everything else?
Is there danger is the wrong word because this team's not making the playoffs no matter how much of a miracle worker he is, but is it possible that he has them on like an 82-point pace at some point and the Canucks have to maybe take away some toys to make sure that they're not too good, and they get back into firm lottery position? They get a fully healthy Filipino, fully healthy Marco Rossi, any sort of bounce back from Elias Pettersson, the team will be better. It wouldn't be crazy to think that.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're out to lunch there. I think there is a reason to think that even without bounce backs, just a better sort of cohesive system.
Right. Yeah.
This team has a chance. It was something that we would talk about often during this past season. Change the coach. What does this team become? And there was, I think most people at Press Row thought there's a 15-point bounce just by changing your coach. Listen, this team finished dead last, and so 15 points doesn't get you near the playoffs, right? A 30-point bounce does, and that's what you're talking about, right?
I think it's pretty impossible to make the playoffs, but I think an 82-point season is doable, and that's still 10 points.
Sure.
That's 10 points out of the playoffs.
Yeah, and I'm going to pull up the NHL standings here and remind myself what a 15 or a 82-point team looks like, because I think that is an important thing to recognize, right? You want in your heart of hearts, you would like another lottery pick, right?
Yeah.
That would take a lot, right? An 82-point team is the Jets, it's the Jets or
Kraken at 79. Yeah.
So you're still bottom 5 or 6 or 7,
Yeah.
So you're in range. Yeah, I think that's very much it. It's the one thing you don't want to bump too high above that, because then you start end up at 10, 11, 12. And that is the one thing you do not want, is you don't want to draft outside the top 10. I don't think you want to draft outside the top 5, given how good that draft is already starting to look like. And the amount of young talent that you really need. The thing is you need young players to come in. And if you're going to look for stars, that's where they're going to come from. That said, the idea of building entirely through the draft is a challenging one. Most of the teams that have had any success, you need to find that elite top end player, and then you need to do everything else well. You need to steal the phrase, an army of guys. And you get that army of guys through smart trades, smart signings, and inevitably smart draft picks, but especially the former two. Like don't get caught up in having too many young guys. Like Montreal is now in a position where they position themselves well. And how is that team going to become great? That team's going to become great not by more drafts. Team's going to become draft by trading current prospects and future draft picks for guys that are ready right now. And so that's the thing to recognize, is that you do need to be aggressive in how you build out your roster while not ignoring the top end of your draft.
And I would say if that rosy scenario looks like it's happening, all the more reason to trade some of these veterans. But, of course, 6 of them have no move clauses, and one of them has a modified no trade in Drew O'Connor. Look, is the biggest task at hand fixing Elias Pettersson? Will he ultimately be judged on whether he can get more out of Elias Pettersson if, in fact, Elias Pettersson is still a Vancouver Canuck in September?
Well, yeah. I mean, that is a question, and obviously he was asked about it. This is a guy that he certainly knew as a younger player, and would have a sense of in terms of what he was delivering then. And what the
he saw the best version of him, Peach. Like, he would have seen what made Elias
But I know, like, listen, I know there were frustrations that training camp that year that I heard about later on, that, you know, he had gone and won the Calder and kind of thought, and it goes back to the ongoing question of preparation, right? Like I won the Calder, so I'm here, and that's it. And that people were actually a little bit stunned at you know, the lack of sort of off-season prep work that year. So that will be something he would have been aware of. And now here we are, as he pointed out, 6 years down the road. It's kind of crazy to think that was 6 years ago, but here we are. And so, yeah, like figuring that out, whether he's here or not, is a huge question for management, and it's a huge question for Malhotra, because this is a player that, for a variety of reasons, has lost the thread of his career. And like I wrote about in March at the deadline, this is a guy that just seemed lost. Like, he just couldn't figure it out himself. And so whether Malhotra can make a difference, whether, you know, mental performance coach Alex Hodgkins can make a difference, like, there's a whole slew of people that could make a difference. You know, it'd be interesting to see who they bring in on the staff, the assistant coaches, right? Like, is there someone who can finally connect in a way that is beneficial to everybody? Because, as I can't remember who asked the question, as was noted, you know, Rick Tocchet tried, Bruce Boudreau had some success, but mostly in the end, Adam Foote tried, Travis Green in the end, you know, like, Travis Green saw the worst of the player and also saw the best of the player, and Manny was there for some of that too. So can you find a way? At the end of the day, as I think we've said many times, it fundamentally does come down on the player. That's kind of it.
Would you want to, if the Canucks got a merely fair trade, nothing to get excited about, but merely fair, would you be more tempted to see what Manny Malhotra can unlock here, or accept a fairish trade for Elias Pettersson?
I mean, I think you're at the point where he needs a fresh start. And I think if you have a chance to move on, it's good for him, probably better for the team. In the sort of overall, like, the group that they had did not work. They've gotten rid of everybody else. The idea that that was not a collective failure is, I don't believe. Like, in the end, they all failed. There's a lot of reasons why, you know, and you can probably scale different percentages of blame around, and he may not be a large portion of it, but he was in that mix. They put their money in with this group, the Hughes Pettersson group, and it didn't work. And so, I mean, I suppose you go to the Colorado example and you said Nathan MacKinnon, the whole group around Nathan MacKinnon was changed, and they ended up going with Nathan MacKinnon. But does anybody sit here and think Elias Pettersson has Nathan MacKinnon in him? I don't think so. There's never been a single anecdote that lines to up. So
he's not McKinnon's size. He's not McKinnon's speed. At least not recently. He's not McKinnon's shot. And well, I mean, I think Elias has a very good brain for hockey, but I just don't think he has a resolute, exactly, obsession with being the best and demanding the best around him. I mean, it's almost to the point where people in Colorado were saying it's too much, McKinnon, in terms of the way he leans on people. You wonder if that was the reason why McFarland left for Nashville, but alas, a different conversation. What did you make of his answers on Caleb?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to do a little thing on that actually, sort of as soon as we're done here. And we talked a little bit afterwards. The coach. I would keep wanting to say coach dad, but he said no. There's coach and there's dad. And he said honestly, they never talked hockey at home. That was something that Caleb was able to sort of divide. And generally, when Caleb asked him about hockey, he was asking for coaching advice. And that's an interesting thing, because one of the things that we certainly hear from players and is how important the relationship with their parents is, father or mother. Being able to call up after the game, saying, I'm having a hard time, even into their 20s. I'm having a hard time. This wasn't great. What'd you think? And Manny actually talked a little bit about that afterwards. He said, that there's just we've never had well, you should be getting more ice time and all that kind of. He's just like, that's just never something I've had to do. Like, my son has been very smart about his own game and understanding what he's trying to do and asking me for game advice. And, I suppose that speaks to the broader mentality of the family. Like, this is a family, obviously, that has accomplished a great many things. And I think understands how to be level-headed, right? Like, I've never heard of Uncle Steve not being level-headed. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that's a trait. And Manny's as folk. I mean, think about that anecdote, Matt, that Mike Gillis told us about when he first met Manny. And he's this young guy. They're out for dinner, and he's out basically giving change to panhandlers because he's looking around and seeing what the world is. And just a guy that's not getting overwrought one way or another, just saying, I'm going to try to do the right thing. Like, clearly that's something that's rubbed off on the kid. So yeah, like it was interesting. I mean, it's a huge challenge if it comes to pass, no matter what, right? Like the volume inevitably around that as a partnership, around the player, around the coach, that is going to be something that will be difficult, because, we've all heard the stories of coaches who's, had young kids, or players who've had young kids, and the chatter that inevitably comes with the schoolyard and that kind of thing. Like, that's a dynamic that will be next level if Caleb's here, because he inevitably is going to hear from people he knows, or he's going to hear, the fan noise and the media noise filters in inevitably. And how do you deal with that? Them saying, Dad's not doing this, versus, as well as Son's not doing this.
It's easy.
Is going to be.
Yeah, like it is.
There's not a reasonable case to make for it.
Not for me, because you can hash it out on paper the best to the best of your ability, and I just think in practice it's a different animal. We shall see.
And it's such a big tier. Like, he has not separated himself so much from anybody else in that tier that you don't have options.
Well, and as we talked about, the question that was unasked today was the one about the other 22 guys in the room, right?
Yeah.
Like, they have to be able to accept it and embrace it as well. Last question from me, and it is the question that you asked Manny about being the first NHL head coach of South Asian descent. And look, the answer was somewhat similar to what we remember when Manny was a player here and asked those sorts of questions. Does the equation change now, Patrick, because he's the head coach, one of the faces of the franchise, who will be seen and heard on just about a daily basis during hockey season, as opposed to, the third line center who's occasionally heard from in media?
Yeah, I mean, it ties a little bit, and I heard you guys talking about my other question too when I asked RJ about, credit to Rob Williams for making the observation. I asked Rob if I could steal the premise, that this is the first time that the Canucks have had a coach, a GM, and a president who are all former players, other than when Pat Quinn held all three roles at once. It's the how you present yourself to the community. And, Ryan Johnston ended up answering the question, talking about his dressing room specifically, and say, well, no, I can't lean on that. I have to do, and I followed up with him a little bit after it. He said, I have to deliver on the job. whether it's fans or players, there's an expectation as the GM you have to deliver. And, and that was kind of Manny's point, was that, well, no matter who I am or I come from, I have to deliver as the coach. But of course, he is aware that this is a powerful image for the team, reflecting back on its community, right? Like, that is the marvelous thing here. I really think this is important. For a club that has struggled at times, especially in the last 5 or 6 years, in how it presents itself in the community. Manny's been hired as a coach, right? He's not being hired because of his background, as he said himself. He's being hired on competency, but that does matter, right? Like, it's a wonderful secondary item for this club, because they are reflecting. This is one of the most diverse fan bases in the NHL, and that's important. I really think that's important.
It matters most today. It matters most today.
Yes,
but
yes.
It gets less and less important.
Yeah. But then, of course, but it matters today, and I think it's important for the team. This is a team that is stepping forward and is reflecting, like I said, it's reflecting what a community is and looks like and behaves and operates. And I think it's a secondary thing, and it's not front of mind for Manny. He's aware. He grew up in a mixed cultural household. I was talking to Randeep Jandava. I said, Randeep, does he speak Punjabi? He goes, no, but he's told me he knows all the bad words. So, that's that matters, right? Like, there's going to be some, the streets, as they say, are going to love this. So it's a great secondary item to the big picture of the story.
One thing that I picked up on, it was subtle. We didn't discuss it yet, Blake. When Harman Dial asked him about the young defenseman, the sentence, the NHL is not a developmental league, was spoken, echoing Willie Desjardins once upon a time going into a training camp. And I just want to put everyone on the call here on notice, and everyone listening at home, 2 ways that can manifest going forward. Number one, if EPD or one of these young guys who has been an NHLer, but he doesn't think is best served in the NHL, maybe they're in Abbotsford, right? No, don't give me these guys. Let's let until they're ready. And then secondly, does there come a breaking point for Manny where he talks to his buddies upstairs, Mr. Johnston and Sedins, and says, we just need better players in here at some point? Gets a little anxious.
Or cut bait on player X, because I don't think he's developing further beyond this. Get rid of him while he may have some value. Yeah.
Yeah, right, which is the task. And I wrote a little bit about this at the end of the season. What does a rebuild look like? And I talked to Jason Strutterby about this, who was on the 99 Canucks, right? Like the one other true rebuild in team history. And him pointing out that Brian Burke at the end of that season said, some of you guys are not going to be here as the season was coming close. Some of you guys aren't even going to be here next year in training camp. Like, some of you guys are going to be gone during the season, but some of you might not even make training camp. Like, this is the task, turning it all over. And I don't pretend to know Manny that well, but certainly everything I've heard of, this is a guy who gets it, who knows what he needs. And certainly Ryan Johnston, who has long experience in just having to find guys from his days of running the AHL club. Like, they are both guys who recognize that there is something that needs to be done, and you go get it done. So, I know. And just as a side note, I mean, Harman's question was right after my South Asian coach question, which that was, to a certain level, for all the idiot anti-immigration, anti-cultural people who are out there. Like, it was such an important moment for this team. Like, it is so important what's going on here that I really think that this is a big moment for the team, and I hope they've had massive success, because what an ultimate validation of everything that we're talking about.
It was so important that even with Randeep and Harm and others in the room, the White Irishman asked the question of him today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your efforts, as always, and your insights here today. We'll catch up next week, Peach.
Take it. Yeah, take care, guys.
That is Patty Johnson. That's his email.
No, Powereg.
That would be stylish.
You should just change it midway.
Yeah, and I think he makes a lot of good points there. But being around Elias as a younger player, seeing what was there and seeing what was missing.
And what remains.
I think gives Manny a leg up, at least, if he is the next one who has to fight the battle with Elias about being reachable, trusting again, being coachable, being the best.
I am mildly optimistic about that process and what could happen there, but I would like to reserve the right to call in the time machine when possible and then rewind back to June to trade him if it doesn't work out. You know, like I want to see both parallel universes. I want to see how they both pan out, because I do think there is a possibility. Unlockett makes it sound like he's going to be a 120-point guy this year. That will never happen. But I do think there's a possibility that strides are made under Manny Malhotra. The question is, will those strides even be enough to turn down any reasonable offer?
Yeah, and if strides are made, does he get complacent after that again?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So we shall see. Let's move on to our daily poll question today, and we're going to turn our focus to the draft. We talk prospects every single day on this program. We understand the exercise. We know what you folks want to hear about, the future of the Vancouver Canucks and the bright young stars that could be a part of this organization. And today we ask, with the Combine going on, with the Canucks taking Gavin McKenna to dinner, do you envision any scenario where the Canucks draft Gavin McKenna? It's Sheng Peng doing the reporting here out of San Jose. Gavin McKenna having dinner with just the Canucks this week at the Combine. No Maple Leafs, no San Jose Sharks, the teams with the first and second overall selections. Sheng says, I doubt that means anything for his draft stock, but it is interesting. Absolutely it is. He also reports, he did a recent story on the possibility of the Sharks moving down out of the number 2 pick. He kicks around the notion of a swap with the Blackhawks at number 4, defenseman Kevin Korchinski, one-time first-round pick. A Hawks second-round pick. Is there a deal to be made there if Chicago is eager to move up to number 2 and San Jose thinks they can get their guy at number 4? He even kicks around the idea of straight moving the pick to the Rangers for Adam Fox in combination with a draft choice. So there you have a San Jose Sharks beat writer, Blake, who is talking about what we have all been wondering since the draft lottery dropped. Is there a real possibility here that San Jose trades that pick one way or the other? Of course, the Toronto element is still there. Answer me the poll. Do you see any scenario where the Canucks walk out of this draft in Buffalo with Gavin McKenna?
I'd love to know what they actually think of Gavin McKenna. I think both of us do have that. Again, it's not. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust, but it's a deep fear for me.
There's a skepticism on this first overall that did not accompany names like Celebrini, McDavid, Bedard, McKinnon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So
this is more a Slavkovsky, Hischier sort of number 1 than it is that lot.
So I saw a lot of people saying, "Oh, this is just wishful thinking." I don't know that it is wishful thinking. Honestly, I do think that there is it's non-zero. It's not a 40% chance, but it's not so remote that it's not worth talking about. Like I think the Leafs were absolutely intrigued by what they saw with Ivar Stenberg this year, and I don't know that they think that couldn't work with Austin Matthews. He's not a Marner like-for-like replacement, but you don't need to do that. You don't need to go find another Marner. Mm-hmm. In fact, a stiffer player, better along the walls, might intrigue them a lot more than a carbon copy of Mitch Marner. So
I think McKenna has to improve his defensive game a fair bit before we start even talking about him as a Marner player, a style player.
So I think there is a possibility where there's a massive gasp at the first overall pick and they go with Ivar Stenberg.
On paper, McKenna is a playmaking, creative setup winger for a shoot first former 60-goal scorer centerman in Austin Matthews. I mean, that should be peas and carrots, but we shall see. I voted no. I just think there's such a very slim chance that he falls to number 3. I think if Gavin McKenna is available at number 2, if the Leafs pass, I think it gets very real for San Jose at that point to trade with Chicago or even trade with the Rangers at number 5. Could the Canucks get involved with that? Yeah, I suppose they could. But I have a feeling the price to move to number 2 increases if Gavin McKenna is there as opposed to Ivar Stenberg. So I voted no on the poll. But, hey, with so much uncertainty around the top of this draft, and the funny part is, Blake, is one of the reasons we asked this poll question, I kept seeing it every single day in our comments. Every single draft post we publish has Canucks fans saying, oh, don't discount Gavin McKenna. They could still get Gavin McKenna in this draft, and some even thinking they could get him at number 3. Blake, as the poll sits right now, 52% of them are saying yes, they envision scenarios where the Canucks walk away with Gavin McKenna. So you can vote on that poll at Sekeresson Price, X, and YouTube. A couple things we'll mention here. We're coming up to Cam Robinson will join us. Cam has mentioned, and will expand on this with us, internally, sounds like there's very much a lot of debate here. A pro-Stenberg faction, a pro-Caleb Malhotra faction, and even a Keaton Verhoeff faction. Now, I think this is with the view of presuming McKenna is gone, because I think if you're the Canucks, you have to evaluate McKenna. I think that's part of the reason why they're taking him to dinner on the slight possibility. But I wouldn't be surprised if the organizational time, efforts, and energies are focused on the question of Stenberg, Malhotra, or one of the defensemen. Maybe Verhoeff's the preference there, because I think that is the more real and likely scenario.
I am surprised that we're back with Keaton Verhoeff in the conversation, and yet
17-year-old in college hockey, Blake, again with the point totals he put up, very, very rare. I think he's one of 3.
And I did go down the road of his year last year, and people have speculated. People have speculated what his year this year in the WHL would have looked like, and it's a reasonable conversation to have. Hell, if he just repeated his year from last year again this year, are there still the quote-unquote concerns about Keaton Verhoeff? He had 21 goals in just 63 games. This is a right shot defender that's 6'4", 210.
Mm-hmm. And is still not 18 years old. He does not turn 18.
Couple more weeks.
Until June. 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Like, it is intriguing.
Yeah. Oh, no, I mean, no question. A 45-point season as a 16-year-old in the WHL, 21. He was a goal every 3 games, Blake.
And then a 20-point season in 36 NCAA games in the NCHC. Like,
yep. Cam and Elite Prospects have also put out a Scouts poll, the latest edition of the Scouts poll. And those of you on visual platforms can see it there. It's McKenna, Malhotra, Stenberg, Carson Carroll's ahead of Chase Reed at number 5, Viggo Bjork, Albert Smits, Verhoeff down to 8, Malhotra, the big mover, up 6 spots into the 2 hole, Verhoeff down 5, Stenberg down 2 from the number 1 position. You'll remember after the World Juniors, a lot of people had Stenberg leapfrogging Gavin McKenna. This is a consensus of 10 teams that give Cam their list or the Scouts list, and he cobbles them together and puts them into a ranking. So some interesting stuff, and this is a little bit more real, and provided they're not just feeding Cam some funny business for the purposes of throwing off trails and smoke screens and all that we talk about during line season. This is a little more concrete, I think, than your typical looking at public lists and people who do this from the outside looking in as opposed to the inside looking out.
I think it's super unlikely that the Sharks would draft a forward.
I don't.
But can you imagine Macklin Celebrini and Caleb Malhotra as your top 2 centermen going forward in terms of character and performance?
Yeah.
Like, you'd never have to worry about your brand again.
I would not be surprised, number one, just because from conversations of people who know San Jose telling me they think Stenberg is absolutely a real possibility there. Gosh, can you imagine McKenna and Macklin?
You think you can draft Stenberg and trade one of your current
that's
forwards,
it.
your Misas
So,
or Eklunds for a defenseman, right? So
I think it's fair to say San Jose went best player available with Michael Misa. They went best player available with Sam Dickinson. The defense needs so much work that I think you're looking at NHL players there, particularly when you got within a whisker of the playoffs this year. So I think for a lot of scouts and evaluators, you watch a player like Stenberg and the way he plays, which frankly reminds me a little bit of Macklin Celebrini, just the all-out effort, energy, desire in all three zones. And you got to ask yourself the question, are we going to pass on this for more of a ball of clay style defenseman in Chase Reed? For a defenseman in Verhoeff that may not have the greatest skating ability? For a defenseman in Carroll's who may not provide the most offensive punch? So, look, it is one of the more fascinating NHL drafts that I can remember for all of the questions here that swirl around these top three picks.
Could they draft Stenberg and then trade Eklund to Chicago for that fourth?
I don't think Chicago would take the fourth. I think you need to sweeten that to get 4. But could they draft Stenberg and then trade one of their young forwards for a defenseman? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Chris Johnston of The Athletic on Elias Pettersson. I have no doubt that he's tradable and likely at full bore. Now the thing is, if you're taking on the full contract, I don't think the Canucks can expect to get much back in return. I want to highlight this for 3 elements. Number 1, I have no doubt that he's tradable. You don't have to go too far back to hear people saying Elias Pettersson and his contract are untradeable. That has changed. Incremental change, if you will, to quote Manny Malhotra, but that has changed. And likely at full bore, again, you do not have to go too far back to find people who say, oh, the Canucks would have to retain money. There's no way anyone's taking on 11.6.
Yeah.
Now you have an insider saying, no, he's tradable and full contract.
So now we just have to drill down on the definition of not much in return.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean?
And look, Chris has more NHL executive sources talking to him on this than I do. I still think when you're dealing with a marketplace of 31 teams, not that Elias would accept a trade to 31 teams, with so many teams looking for second-line centers, top 2 centers, with it now being a game of talent acquisition as opposed to good contract value, because cap's going up every single year. We don't really need to sweat contract value as much as we used to. I do think there will be a trade to be made this summer that returns the Vancouver Canucks better value than many believe, and may knock the socks off people in comparison to what the discussion was around Pettersson towards the end of this past season and his tradability.
And remember, a part of the what you may have to take back in return is not retention of salary, but somebody else's not so great contract. That might be part of the mix, and that might also help sweeten what you get back in return.
And in the case of the Vancouver Canucks, unless that's a 6 or 7 year term remaining, it's probably not going to matter because you're going to have the cap space and the ability to withstand having a bad contract on the books. Hell, Elias Pettersson is a bad contract on the books right now.
You have to look at the Hurricanes and Kotkaniemi and just say, you know.
And if Carolina falls short here, Blake, does that spur them to finally sweeten the offer and give something of value for Elias Pettersson?
Do you jump on Kotkaniemi and their 31st overall pick?
Ultimately, I'd probably do that, but I'd hope it to be a little better. I'd put the screws to Tulski and see if he's willing to finally bend on that, especially if all the intel that we've heard about how Carolina values Pettersson, he fits their model for some time. There's a lot of depth in that Carolina organization. So I would try and prize much of it as I could.
Get a Charlie Serrato as well.
Yeah, picks. Mm-hmm. Pivotal Game 2 tonight in the Stanley Cup Final from Raleigh, North Carolina. Teams that take a 2-0 series lead in the Cup Final go on to win 91% of the time, 50-5.
Wow.
Boy, who are the poor souls in that 5? Oh, wait.
2-0 series lead, yeah.
And, of course, this would be Vegas taking a 2-0 series lead going home. And we saw what they did, polishing off Colorado as easily as they did when they got that thing back to T-Mobile on the Vegas Strip up to nothing. The Hurricanes are 7-12 all-time in series when trailing 1-0. The Golden Knights are 11-3 all-time in playoff series when up 1-0. And a reminder here that the finals are on and the Nation Network is all over it. Every game, every storyline, every big moment. This is hockey's biggest stage. And we're bringing you closer to the action every day. Like, follow, and subscribe to the Daily Face-Off YouTube and social channels to stay connected to the finals from the first puck drop to the last buzzer. Okay, let's get to our menu today. It's brought to you by our friends at Greta, a fantastic spot to pregame or postgame. You are mere steps from the arena or the stadium. And if you're planning a private party, Greta is absolutely the place for you. First of all, the arcade. It will wow your guests. The smiles when they walk through the door and they see that old video game that they used to play, or they see Papa Shot, or they see air hockey, and all the different fun and entertainment available for you at Greta. It's more than just a bar. It's more than just an eatery. It is an arcade. It is amusement front to back. Food's delicious, very approachable street food. Your picky eaters will be satisfied. And, of course, that private riser at the back with a dedicated full-service bar. To book your event, to get more info, GretaBar.com, Greta 50 West Cordova. Let the games begin. As mentioned, Cam Robinson is coming up from Elite Prospects, draft expert. Man, we talk so much. His combine intelligence. Caleb, now that it's real with Manny as the head coach. Ivar Stenberg taking Chase Reed, Gavin McKenna to dinner. What are these dinners really about at the combine? We'll get into that. The internal debate that we just talked about, his scouts poll. The Ruck twins are heading back to Medicine Hat, so we'll talk that as well as Judd Brackett features as well, former Canucks director of amateur scouting, who's off to be an AGM with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Later in the program, Canada's final tune-up before the World Cup. Thomas Muller, Vancouver's most eligible bachelor. The BC Lions unveil a new away jersey. Think Pacific, think Frost. CFL is seemingly making all sorts of strides to a 10th franchise in Quebec City. Plus, we'll talk NBA Finals, all the baseball, the Mariners' big win streak ends, and poor Felix Auger-Aliassime. Lucky Vicky Mboko on the tennis side of things. Time now for our Bet365 bets of the day. I was a big loser yesterday with the Knicks win.
Yeah, I only got 2 assists out of Wembanyama. I also lost. The Carolina Hurricanes.
We have done a lot of losing in this segment of late.
Yeah, it's not been good.
So we're almost at a Costanza moment here where you're going opposite of whatever we have to say.
I'm like the Hurricanes then. I'm desperate for a win. And because of that desperation, I'll use the spread to my advantage. Hurricanes minus 1.5 at plus 160.
We have a kid playing on the escalator here.
Oh,
I
my
feel
gosh.
like Jason Lee and Mallrats
Yeah.
here. Respect the escalator.
Do you know how many kids die every year?
Oh, the kid was on his butt, too. I'm sitting there going, oh, if the material gets caught in there, you don't know what. Anyways.
He's okay.
And I'm not even a parent.
Oh, here's a Wall Center employee. They're going to.
Yes, it is now time to straighten this chat. Where are his parents in the supervision?
Oh, they're doing laps in the escalator now.
No, that's fine. They can run up and down it all they want, but don't sit down and let yourself get to the end.
Have you ever tripped on an escalator? The shin.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
It's not good.
The Canadian Football League 2026 season begins tonight in Hamilton, where the Tiger Cats take on the Alouettes. And I'll say this, Bet365, they're not much of mind in the CFL Week 1. You have 2 games where the spread is 1.5 points. You have 1 game where the spread is 2.5 points. They're effectively pick'ems across the board here. Bet365's effectively saying, we're going to let you guys figure out who's good and who's bad before we get into any kind of points laying one way or the other. Hamilton's the one is a home underdog tonight. Hell, I mean, I could just as easily see the Tiger Cats winning the game as Montreal. And I'm getting plus 115 on a home team that should play in front of a big crowd and a passionate crowd tonight in the city where the Canadian Football Hall of Fame resides. So give me the Tabbies at plus 115 to win the ball game. Tired of waiting for the end of the game to get paid, ready to move on to that next puck drop? That's why Bet365, an official partner of the NHL's 3-goal early payout. If the team you're riding goes up 3 goals at any point in the game, they'll pay your bet out early. Hockey moves fast, and now with 3-goal early payout, there's one less thing you have to wait around for. See, I made him wait.
You made me wait, yeah.
Bet365, download the app, see what early payout's all about. Must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. Cam Robinson is next.
This is going to be so unreal for Vancouver, Blake. I'm picturing the city absolutely packed, the bars packed, jerseys throughout the town, and watching soccer matches all day long. The city is going to have such a cool vibe during the FIFA World Cup 2026.
Now, I know both of us have traveled to sporting events before for work and for fun. And I know we agree that it is just a different experience when you're in a part of town, in a home that gives you the real flavor of the city. And that's why we prefer staying in homes on Airbnb.
And that's what makes a tournament like this so much fun, though. You are mingling and being surrounded by the energy of a city as opposed to just your friends and the people that you traveled with. And Blake, you know I want to show Vancouver off to all these visitors. My neck of the woods, Kitts Beach, West 4th, even Greek Town along Broadway.
All right.
And during something like the FIFA World Cup 2026, where you stay becomes part of the experience. Having a place where everyone can just hang on out after the match, before the match, relive the game, look forward to the game, experience the city together, and make the trip feel more memorable.
And honestly, if you're coming to Vancouver for FIFA World Cup 2026, why not stay somewhere that lets you get more deeply connected to the city, create more memories, grab a coffee on Commercial Drive, catch the fan energy downtown or the Fan Fest. And if somebody invites you to have a huge argument over hockey after the soccer match, well, congratulations, you've officially lived like a Vancouver local.
Hey, and you may even get invited to some backyard barbecues in the right neighborhoods.
You never know. Airbnb, the world is meant to meet.
So Harrison Price from the historic Wall Center. We now go to Buffalo and the National Hockey League Draft Combine, where Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects is attending, the director of everything at EP, including a recent Scouts poll that we're going to get to. But first, we've got to get the Combine intelligence on the Vancouver Canucks. He's been working the rooms. He's been working the cocktail parties. Cam, what are you hearing on the Canucks in this first-round pick?
Well, I think like most teams at the top, they kind of hold the keys to everybody behind them, and which doesn't sound like it. You'd say that every year, but it really does feel like everything's a little in flux up to Vancouver. I think what happens after that is going to be fairly stock for a few picks, but they do hold the cards after Toronto, and then after San Jose decides what they want to do. So, kind of the buzz around is that obviously we know who they took out for dinner. But I do think one name that wasn't on that list that they might end up taking out for dinner, we'll find out here in a couple hours, is Keaton Verhoeff. There is just kind of talk amongst people here that, and I think that maybe his camp has gotten wind of that as well, is that Vancouver does like Keaton Verhoeff a lot. I'm not saying that's going to be the pick at 3, but they have a lot of interest in this player, and they're not alone. There are a number of teams that still value this player as a top 3 pick. And that was exhibited in that scout poll that I did too. So I think he's a viable candidate to go very high. Like if San Jose chooses to go defense, he might be the guy even at number 2.
So you could see the Canucks taking Verhoeff 3rd.
I'm not saying that, but I do think that internally there is, a substantial faction in the organization that thinks that he should be the pick at number 3.
Why? Explain to everybody why the Canucks take Gavin McKenna to dinner. It seems like pie in the sky thinking, but just in case.
It's our poll. Do you see any scenario where the Canucks wind up with McKenna?
Not at 3. I don't.
Right.
I think, there's always a tiny little bit on draft day that something could go wild, right? Something could go if Toronto decided to go center, perhaps, right? Maybe they go, you know what? We want to build around Caleb Malhotra. And that would shock everybody. And then San Jose goes up and goes, well, we need a defenseman. And then they take Chase Reed or Keaton Verhoeff or Carson Karls. Then Gavin McKenna would be there. So that's really the only way I could see that happening. But
Matt Sundin was there at the Worlds too. He watched Stenberg go off at the Worlds in live and in person. I mean, is there a chance that shakes up the draft too?
Yeah, there is a world where Stenberg could go 1, but then I think San Jose. Oh gosh, sure, it could happen. It could go Stenberg, defenseman, McKenna. Like those things are within the realm of possibility. I would just be very surprised. And so for Vancouver to take him out for dinner, I also thought that was quite interesting. Oftentimes teams will talk to players that they don't really have a realistic chance of drafting just to get a book on them, right? Just to have that 5-6 years down the road. If you're looking at acquiring that player, you have a book on them already. So it makes sense why Gav is sitting down with 9 or 10 teams, but to go out for dinner with them, maybe that's a tell. Maybe that's a tell that they think something weird or wild could happen. Maybe that's that they're knocking on the doors. Can we move up? I don't know.
They also took Chase Reed to dinner.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's real, or do you think that's getting a book, as you say?
I think it's real. And I think it should be real. Chase Reed is number 3 on my board. He was number 3 on a few teams' lists that shared with me. I think a lot of teams, I was talking to a couple of them yesterday, and they just readily shared that they felt, Reed is the best chance of having like a number 1 defenseman out of this class. The way that he can move out there, his size, his skating, his offensive inclination. Yeah, the points didn't like pop in the OHL, especially for an 18-year-old. But I think if you watch him play, especially leading up to and during the World Juniors, you can see the upside there. And for a team like Vancouver, it's like truly take the best player available that you have on your board. And if that's Chase Reed, take him.
I read Reed's backward skating and penchant for turnovers are things that are concerning scouts. What do you see there?
He's a bit raw still. And that's part of being a late bloomer, right? A year and a half ago, he was a number 6 defenseman in the NAL. So he has come leaps and bounds over that time. And so, yes, there are some things that he needs to flesh out. He also didn't understand that he had to actually play defense for a long time. Like that he just thought I can be a rover constantly. And so him actually playing defense and skating backwards against the rush is fairly new to him. But I actually think that his defensive game has improved compared to last year when he came partway through the season into the O and also put up a point per game. Then it was a lot of offense and a lot of mistakes defensively. And this year he added a little more jam, and I think that his rush defense, his ability to surf across, has started to improve. It's still a work in progress, which is why he's not an NHL ready player, and he's going to MSU, which is going to be a great spot for him to develop too.
The strength of the Western League these days I've seen under fire, and it's a symptom of the greater issue in the CHL in total. But it might impact Carson Karls's value in the draft. How much? And we talked about this yesterday a little bit. We've seen Stenberg play against men. We've seen Verhoeff play against 23-year-olds. So how much do the collegiates and the European SHL guys have a leg up on the CHL guys now, who it's a bit nebulous as to how difficult and how great a league the CHL is compared to the rest?
It's certainly opened up some discussions on how to assess these players in a historical context. So can we accurately compare statistical profiles from even 5 years ago in the CHL, even 2 years ago in the CHL, right? How are we now comparing statistical analysis on NCAA kids? Doing what Keaton Verhoeff did last year as a 17-year-old at Nodak versus what Zach Werenski did 10 years ago when he was playing at Michigan, right? Like, college hockey has never been better either. And conversely, you could look over in Sweden and you could say that perhaps the SHL isn't as strong as it once was either, too. So for some of those young guys, so it's really it's an ever moving book. It's very fluid, I would say, on how teams value that. And you're also going to get biases among groups where some like that throwback Western Hockey League style that still is prevalent at times, and especially a kid like Carson Karls, who, by the way, among the 10 teams I spoke to, he was one of the most consistently ranked players. That he was top 5 for 9 teams and number 6 for the 10th team. That certainly didn't impact his. And on the other side too is that I had a couple of teams. One in particular said, like, you put Verhoeff back in Seattle last year, he scores 35. And the discourse around him is completely different.
Right.
But at the same time, he went and played against harder competition, and he was exposed for some of his deficiencies, which tells something to teams as well too. So it's, like I said, it's 9 of this or 10 of the other. It's really hard to kind of get a grasp on it because it is ever changing.
I think I saw you mentioned the internal debate with the Canucks, Stenberg and Caleb Malhotra. Expand on that, my man.
Yeah, so what I was told, and it's been echoed here as well, so that was last week, and I had a couple people come up to me and just say that they had heard the same thing, that was good intel, that it seems like that there is a faction within the organization that is really pro Ivar Stenberg if he's available there at 3. And then I think that there's another one that's very, very pro Caleb Malhotra if he's there at number 3. And I do think that perhaps it's Todd Harvey and some of the scouts there really like Keaton Verhoeff. So if we can use our powers of deduction, it's like, we'll see if the director of scouting gets his way on that one. I would assume a pick at number 3 is going to lean a lot more heavily towards the GM making that pick, with consultation from the Sedins. And so, that I do think that those are kind of the 3 guys that they're really talking about. But like we mentioned before too, Chase Reed is right in the mix there.
So much debate, so many opportunities. And now today, because they're unveiling Manny Malhotra, it does make that Caleb Malhotra debate even more intriguing. Yeah. And we can listen to what Ryan Johnston said a couple of days ago till we're blue in the face, but I don't know that it necessarily, and I'm not accusing him of lying, I just don't know that it's what the internal discussions would necessarily be either. I don't know what to believe here, Cam.
I don't know what to believe either. I know what I think, and that's what I can share personally, is like, I don't think it's a problem. And I've said that all over the place. I don't think it's a problem. I think that if, yes, you have to have those discussions, but I think, anybody who thinks Manny's going to play his son over other players because it's his kid, that, that's you're dreaming. The only real concern would be like, if it was a messy divorce with Manny, how would that impact Caleb? But Manny's a classy guy. You treat classy people with respect. Usually things work out at the end of a coach's tenure too, right? So you're drafting this player, whoever you take at 3, you're hoping they're going to be here for a decade plus, and they're going to be a foundational piece for you. Coaches don't last that long. We've talked about it before, right? What do you do when the team's not working? Well, it's easier to fire a coach than trade a player. So they get the longer leash. I think it would be fine. I don't think that there would be any ruffles on the bench or with time on ice. And I also think that if anybody knows how to push Caleb Malhotra's buttons, it's going to be his old man. So in that sense, it could even work well for the development of them.
How about players censoring themselves or walking in after a narrow loss saying, why the frick didn't the coach pull the goalie, a minute earlier, like bad mouth, stuff like that? How does that play into the equation?
Again, like I don't think it would be a problem. I think that I think Caleb's a hockey player. He's a hockey player. He's going to be the son of Manny. He might come in there and be like, "What the hell was that coach doing there? He should have pulled the goalie sooner," right? Like he might be right on board with that. And it's like when you get into a cohesive group like that, it's the boys, right? The boys in the dressing room, that's like this, and the coach is over here in his room. So you get a little bit closer with assistant coaches than you do with the head coach, but the head coach is there to do what he does. He's the general. He's not your buddy. He knows that people are going to be chirping him in the dressing room behind his back if something didn't work out, and that's okay. That's part of the gig, and I think that would be fine that your son's hearing that too.
Do you envision any scenario where Caleb Malhotra is not there for the Canucks at number 3?
Like I said, I guess in that very far-fetched land where he went number 1, I would be very, very surprised to see him go 2 to San Jose. Now, if San Jose moves back, then, things can change, right? Like if a team jumps up, they might really love Caleb Malhotra. A lot of teams have him number 2 on their board. So if someone's moving up, it could be for him. So that potential. But as it stands right now with Toronto, San Jose, Vancouver, I think in almost every scenario, he's going to be an option for them at 3.
The word out of Chicago is number 4 is available for a ready-made NHL player, but have you heard anything? Could you see a world where the Blackhawks trade up to number 2? Because Dreger reported earlier this week, if San Jose is moving down, they really only want to move down to 3 or 4.
I was told the exact same thing, that it sounded like 4 was their button end if they were going to slide back. They obviously have a tier there. I have heard that potentially that Chicago could look at moving up. I think that they're very happy with their tier as well, that what they have sitting available for them and what will be there at 4. If they can move a player, or if they can move number 4 to get a player like Matthew Nyes, I'm sure they would be all over that, right? Nyes and something, or 4 and something to get him. So I do think that they're certainly open to getting Connor Bedard that player to play with. And if they can't, then they'll be happy to take who's ever there for them, the best player available, whether that's a forward or a D. I could see them going defense there at 4 again as well, too.
Yeah. Do you see any world where San Jose trades number 2 for an NHL player?
Yes. I think that that's more likely than them sliding back, to be honest with you. But again, I will say that it is very rare that we see lottery picks moved this close to the draft. So, but I do in this specific instance, I think that there is, that they are, I'm told, actively listening, not just like, oh yeah, we'll pick up the phone, if you want to throw some at us. They'll want something real. And I've said it before, they'll want a defenseman who can impact the game right now for them. So that's someone in their mid-20s who's going to be under contract for a long time, because they're sacrificing a lot of value with that too. But I do think that's a possibility.
Seattle wants a star. They hold the 7th overall pick. Is there any chance that Seattle goes guns a-blazing to try and move up this draft board?
Yeah, sure. They could try to use 7 to parlay. They could try to use 7 to get themselves a, package 7 with a Shane Wright to get themselves an actual star. I think that would be probably more likely than them trying to go get McKenna. I think that's going to be a hard play to get, especially out of Toronto too, with where they're at right now in their development. So I think it'd be more likely they'd have to package that 7th pick up, but they need a star, right? Like they need to infuse some talent into that lineup.
And marketing too. They need to market a star
for sure.
Yeah.
Are you absolutely firm? You think Leafs are going McKenna first overall? Cam, is there any scenario where McKenna drops to 2 or 3 even?
Yes, because this is the NHL draft. And I was just in the elevator with Chaika. I've been talking with him a little bit this week. Great guy. Did not ask him who he's taking at 1 because he's not going to tell me. But I'm sure, I am positive that they are looking at all options here. They're sitting down with a bunch of players. They're really trying to figure out what they're going to do. But at the end of the day, I think logic indicates to us that it's going to be McKenna.
Okay.
The scouts pulled anything. Did anything surprise you there? I mean, we've talked a lot. We've talked more Keaton Verhoeff today than we have in weeks. He's a -5 though on the June results of the scouts poll for you.
Can we bring that up? Do we have that?
Did you get any surprises as you dug into what people are looking at?
Yeah, I did. There was many surprises. So the biggest one that jumped out to me is so 10 teams gave me a list of 32 names. 57 different names were featured. So that alone tells you the discrepancy at the end. And so this is the first year that I've done this exercise, but that discrepancy, it feels substantial. I thought that Carson Karls being higher than Chase Reed, I thought that was interesting. Caleb Malhotra, number 2, ahead of Ivar Stenberg. And that's consequently because Caleb got 1 first place vote and Ivar was outside of the top 5 for one team. And so that difference just bumped Malhotra ahead by a hair. Viggo Bjork landing at 6. That surprised me as well, too, just because traditionally smaller centers do not go that high. And I still am dubious that he will go that high. I do think that, a guy like Craig Conroy could have the stones to pull it off at 6 if he wanted to, especially if Karls wasn't there. So that was surprising to me a little bit. I mean, Lynn being as high too at 11. I thought
Lynn and
that was good
Belchitz.
too.
Lynn and Belchitz both at 10 and 11, right?
Yeah, Belchez is a really interesting one because he's so unique. The physical profile. I was shooting some video with him yesterday, and there's not too many kids here that are bigger than me. And this guy was like towering over me and probably had 30 pounds of muscle on me. So he's going to dominate these physical testing tomorrow and the next day. And teams are going to love that. And he's a really charismatic kid. And just that uniqueness of his skill and his size, I could see him being a disruptor early. Like, could he be the guy that goes to Winnipeg or to Seattle or something like that, like in that 6 to 8 range or something like that? I could see him being a disruptor for sure.
Interesting.
How big do you go?
Me?
Yeah.
I'm 6'3", about 190.
Attaboy.
Yeah.
That's a very healthy weight for a 40-year-old. He turned 40, huh?
Oh, really? Wow. Look
It's
how
a very
youthful he
healthy
is.
weight for a 40-year-old that's 6'3". Wow, I'm incredibly jealous. Liam and Marcus Ruck say they're going back to Medicine Hat. We had Shane Malloy on yesterday who thought that was just about the worst thing that Liam and Marcus Ruck, the twins from Osoyoos, British Columbia, could do, because he felt like they would just dominate and create bad habits, whereas they went to college, they can challenge themselves. What do you make of the Ruck twins running it back in the Hat?
I could have told you that weeks ago. I knew they were going back. They visited some schools, and they basically, like, there was a couple schools that were pushing to have them come next year. And then there were some schools that were like, yeah, we'd love you to come in after next season, because they, like, I think that they will do just fine with one more year in Medicine Hat. The points are gaudy. The way they scored them is not overly translatable in its entirety. So I think that they certainly have more to prove at that level, despite putting up so many points. And I think, like, if they go back to Medicine Hat for another year, improve their habits and the details to their game, then go to a North Dakota or something like that for a year or two, then come out, you're going to have a better player, I think, than maybe putting them into the college game next year and having them sink or swim a little bit and struggle. I think you'll probably have a better chance of them bringing their offense with them right away to college hockey and then into the pro level.
So for Marcus, the concern is the feet, if I'm not mistaken, the centerman. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay. For Liam, the winger, who most people have as a better prospect, what are the concerns there?
Feet as well. Neither one of them are great skaters. But again, like, it's like, so Liam, he's an interesting one because he can get into the middle of the ice a little bit more, I would say, get off the wall and able to battle. You know, Marcus will have moments of it too. Like, he's strong in the net front and he'll bang away a little bit at loose change and stuff like that too. So you see him battling, but I think it's just more about, like, they use the slow down the pace of play to create separation and to open up lanes for passes or shots or to land in soft spots. And you just need to see them attack more with speed, especially like once they, so getting that at the junior level next year, really attacking with speed, improving their physicality, improving their balance and coming off the wall. And then to bring that to college hockey, now you're testing yourself against like full grown men for a lot of it. I think that those are the steps that they're going to need to really get there. But again, like I know a lot of people love talking about these kids because they're twins and they put up big numbers, and it's like, we got to get them. And I think a team will try to get both. I will say that is I think that a team will try to get both. But these are not like A+ prospects. Like, these are two kids that are more likely to be tertiary pieces than like impactful play drivers at the NHL level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do wonder if they get drafted by different teams, do they go to college and put those teams on notice that you have some time to work out a trade, one of us to the other team, or we may go through college and try and get to free agency where we make it happen together?
That'd be pretty cool. And the sidebar of that is that they're like, well, we'll just stay in college so we can play together longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when the twins, when they got drafted, they're like, if we get drafted together, we'll play one more year in Moto. And if you draft us apart, we'll spend 2, maybe 3. Who knows when we'll come over, right? So, yeah, they could definitely try to play that card.
Mm-hmm. You were tweeting or mentioning Judd Brackett earlier in the week, the former Canucks director of amateur scouting, who, of course, is now off to an AGM promotion with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Your thoughts there? And Is that a miss here in Vancouver with bringing Judd home and promoting him to AGM, but a move you could have got behind or the Canucks and this new management group should have thought about?
Yeah, I think they should have thought about it. I think that the bigger miss is by Minnesota. I think the first miss was letting Judd walk away in the first place. Is that, and I think egos got in the way there. Is that he should have got given an AGM tag in Vancouver all those years ago, and who knows what could have been. But then to go to Minnesota and do the great work that he does there, and then for them to promote 3 guys to assistant GM in 2024, that it was like, ugh, some of these guys, it's like, really, that they're going to be more valuable to the club than Judd is. And so the writing was on the wall. I'm thrilled for him. I think he is an excellent talent evaluator. Nobody's perfect in this game. It is a difficult game. And also, when you're just the director of amateur scouting, you don't always get to make the picks. Bill Guerin looked me in the eye after drafting Charlie Stramel a few years ago and said, yeah, we jumped the list to get this guy. Like, I was just like, oh, okay. We're just sharing that we're jumping the list in the first round. All right. So it's like, you can point at someone's resume and be like, well, here, you picked this guy. And it doesn't mean that was his guy either. So I do, I spent enough time around Judd and around rinks, and he is incredibly well respected around the league. And so, yeah, this promotion is well deserved.
With no Judd, do you have any names that may get a look here at AGM for Vancouver?
I'm not. I haven't heard any names being bounced around.
No.
I do think that they should bring someone else in rather than just completely running it back with the AGMs and the scouts and everybody and Todd Harvey. Like, if they just bring it all back, I do think that you probably want another voice in the room as well too. Someone from the outside. I think that would be useful for them. I'm not sure if they'll do that.
Yeah.
Maybe they're giving the current staff one more crack. Like, let's see how you do under this new regime for a year, and then maybe we'll see changes or something like that. But I would think that there's an opportunity there within, hopefully, between now and the end of next season or the season after that for an AGM to come in and potentially like completely overhaul that scouting department.
We love having you on. You're so good to us. We
Love
especially
coming.
love that you're out there traveling the world.
Pretty good gig. You've done well. This elite
For
prospects
these
thing
hockey
has worked
prospects,
out.
he goes far,
Yeah.
he goes wide, he goes to
Very
warm
fortunate.
climates in the winter, he goes to Buffalo in the spring, and you know what they say about Buffalo in the spring. Have you had a good chicken wing yet?
I had some wings last night. We're going for some wings tonight, apparently, doubling down on the wings. So next week, when you ask me, I'll be 6'3", like 210, I guess, after all these wings. Perhaps.
No,
Yeah, but,
you have some catching up to do.
You're 40. Your metabolism
Yeah,
still works.
exactly.
In 5 years,
Oh,
it won't.
does it?
But
Yeah,
right
exactly.
now, it does. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you,
Eat
Cam
'em now.
Robinson. Catch up soon.
Okay, thanks, boys.
Secure some price from the historic Wall Center, the Nation Network studio built by Arbor Leach. Here harder when you're well rested. Sheraton Vancouver Wall Center puts you minutes from the arena, miles ahead the next morning. Lock in your game day stay at wallcenter.com. They're calling it Pacific Frost. Look at these beauties. The official 2026 away jersey for the BC Lions. Say it's a tribute to the mountain, snow, rain, and coastal landscapes, plural, surrounding the lower mainland, white with silver and orange. And they
That's not a green screen. That's shot up a grouse. They actually made them
go up to
go up
grouse.
to grouse in the snow and shot this.
Keon Hatcher was terrified on the gondola. Rourke was having quite a blast watching Keon Hatcher sweat it out as he looked down upon the city from great heights. Not a big heights guy, Keon Hatcher. Gets up to catch that jump ball in the end zone. We've seen that. Just don't put him on a gondola again, Matt Baker. And they wanted to retain the silver because, well, they won 2 Grey Cups in silver. 94, Louis Pasaglia, the kick, and in 2000 as well. What do you think?
I like them. It's been a trend of late in football to have these all whites. All black got to be a little bit cliched, even though they are sticking with their blacks at home as well. But I like it. No, it's different.
I like it as well.
Pops.
Yep.
Good.
Alas, fans can't buy these jerseys, at least not exact replicas. The for sale version, according to Brian at the BC Lions Den, has the Lions watermark in black and the numbers aren't stitched on. But other than that, they're going to look Pacific Frosty. Mm-hmm. And how about this? Momentum building for a 10th CFL franchise in Quebec City. Sylvain Bouchard, a veteran journalist and talk radio personality in La Belle Province, reports conversations have been ongoing for more than a year regarding the possibility of a CFL stadium in Quebec City with several prominent business leaders involved. They are looking at, leave that up for a sec, Mike. They are looking at tearing down the old Colisée where the Quebec Nordiques once played and building a 25,000-seat open-air stadium. That venue has been closed since 2015, and it's set for demolition in 2027. Of course, they now have the Centre Videotron next door, which is a bigger arena. The prospective investors here have already incidentally, that's what you want to avoid if you're Vancouver, a building that just sits there empty for 12 years.
Yep.
Prospective investors have already traveled to Toronto and met with CFL Commissioner Stuart Johnston. One source told Bouchard that they had complete confidence that Quebec City expansion would take place. They even have a potential name they're floating. Blake, how do you like l'Attaque de Québec? The Quebec Attack in English. L'Attaque.
Yeah, wait.
ATTAQUE. Of course, apostrophe L on the front end there.
I'm game. Whatever gets this league
I don't
to
give a
10
shit
teams.
what they call them, so long as we get a 10th team pronto. Soccer. And it was noted last year when Thomas Muller came over and he mentioned that his wife, they do not have children, was staying behind in Germany. Well, it turns out the couple is separating, according to German media, after 17 years of marriage. His wife, Lisa, works as a professional dressage horse rider and manages a stable of horses in Bavaria, south of Munich. Also works in horse breeding. According to the couple's media lawyer, the couple separated amicably some time ago. No further statements will be made. I ask that you respect the privacy of my clients and refrain from further inquiries. Fans had been speculating this for a couple of years prior to Muller joining the Whitecaps, that they were planning on separating. Some fans noticed that online, Lisa had removed all pictures of Thomas from her Instagram page. That is what you do now when you... What's the Gwyneth Paltrow decouple?
Uncoupling.
Uncoupling, sorry. I met some German media down at MLS Cup in Miami last year, and I said, what's the deal with Muller's wife? Like, she's over there, like, it's a long time. And they said, oh, she's quite a bit different than Thomas. And I said, how so? And they said, she's not the big, outgoing, fun-loving, gregarious personality at all. It was very much an opposites attract, so I'm told. Tomorrow's the final World Cup tune-up for Canada versus Ireland in Montreal, sold-out Saputo Stadium, as Canada sorts its final roster and starting 11 decisions for that June 12th opener versus Bosnia in Toronto. I say starting 11, but who knows? Health may play into it in the intervening, 8 days between this game and the opener.
And a reminder, too, that the 26 players they named on the 29th, you can substitute those players out right up until
24 hours before.
24 hours before the match.
Yeah, so a week from today.
So a lot of people thought, boy, you're naming a lot of the injured players. And, there is a line of thinking here that they named all the injured players because if they remain injured and don't have a real prospect of contributing in one of the first 3 games, then you substitute those guys out. Mm-hmm. But you can't do that. You can't just name the healthy player because they're healthy then and then substitute the injured player in. So there could be significant roster changes. Like if Jacob Schaffelberg is not ready to play for the second tune-up, Like, are you going to
can't play.
drop a guy who hasn't played in forever into a World Cup match?
Well, also, Bombito did not apparently come out of the game as healthy as they hoped. He was removed from the game.
He felt a little something on the break spot.
Right. So the next day, his recovery wasn't tickety-boo. What do you want to see in this match, Blake? Give me your dream scenario in terms of what you want to see and what they sort.
Well, I mean, you just wanted to see injured players healthy. So that's the most baseline comment. In terms of the actual performances, I want to see Jonathan David look like Jonathan David. A little concerned about his, contributions in that first tease.
Let me ask you just on the striker side of things. So, as I understand it, they would be playing with Kyle Larin as a single on high and David behind him.
Is a bit of a 10, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
If Promise David plays, he plays the Larin spot exclusively,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
If Tanny Oluwaseyi plays, he plays in the David spot?
Nope. Often David and Tanny are out there together. It's just then they become more of a twin. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Tanny covers ground. Tanny runs more than Larin and Promise do.
Yeah, they're more post-up strikers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about our boy Ralph Priso, the only Vancouver Whitecap vying for a roster spot here.
Yeah, vying late here.
Quite late.
I think he's got to make the team. I think he's just too good a
utility club.
Yeah, if Laredo is 100% healthy, then Laredo is your utility club. But Laredo is not healthy, so you need that utility club. I think he's just too versatile. I get it. I don't want to lambaste Joel Waterman here as one of the few British Columbians on the team, but I would have felt a lot more comfortable with Priso being named and then Waterman on the.
But Waterman is named.
He's
so
there. Yeah,
and he's not hurt, so he's on.
He's on.
Yeah. So you're Priso over Jaden Nelson?
No, I'm both of them. You take Jacob Schaffelberg out and you put both of them in.
You only have one spot.
No, but you can make two spots easily with Jacob Schaffelberg. He's an injured player. You got a legitimate injury there. You take Jacob Schaffelberg off the roster and you put Priso and Jaden Nelson in.
Okay.
That's what I do.
The New York Mets snap Seattle's 8-game winning streak with a 7-1 victory at T-Mobile. Despite 3 hits, that was the graphic the M's put out. They didn't want to see it. This despite 3 hits and a 10th home run on the season for shortstop J.P. Crawford. Seattle leads all of baseball with 50 home runs at their home park. At this park, which not long ago was viewed as, the death knell for home runs. This is where home runs went to die.
Yep.
They have made it more hitter friendly. And of course with this lineup too, which missing Cal Raleigh for the last little while. So those are very good signs for the M's, who continue to lead the AL West. As for Raleigh, he will begin a rehab assignment this Sunday at High A Everett. And Everett is at the Nat Tuesday, everybody. Please, please, please let it be more than a single game rehab assignment for Cal Raleigh, and let's see him here in Vancouver on Tuesday. From there, the plan is to go to AAA Tacoma. Let's do that, say, next Thursday or Friday.
Yes.
They tell him about the hot dogs on Tuesdays?
Big dumper, 75-cent hot dogs.
100 into the Seattle dugout, please.
Mm-hmm. I bet even the Vancouver Canadians would pick up the tab there.
Yes, slow him down a little bit.
Exactly.
Burden him with 75-cent dogs.
Just to make him happy. Welcome to Vancouver. The M's have gone 12-6 without him. They're off today, and then it's 10 games in 10 nights on the road through Detroit, Baltimore, and Washington. So very winnable games against some really struggling teams. Jays lose a 4th straight last night. Look to avoid the sweep in Atlanta today. They have traded for former prospect and former Vancouver Canadian Simeon Woods Richardson with the Minnesota Twins. That's cash considerations. Woods Richardson has been beaten silly this year. Poor guy. And they have also claimed relief pitcher Justin Tapa, also of the Minnesota Twins. The Vancouver Canadians ride Daniel Guerra, his first career high A quality start, and a 4-hit game from our boy Dub Gleed to a 5-3 victory in Tri-City last night. Gleed finished a triple short of the cycle. Guerra retired the final 10, going 6 innings, 2 runs, 2 hits, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, and Blake. You marveled at how many whiffs Johnny King had the other day. Mm-hmm. How about 28 whiffs on 87 pitches for Guerra last night?
Must have been throwing fire.
That's like 1 out of 3 pitches. They were swinging and missing the ball entirely. His 70 strikeouts are now 4th most in all of minor league baseball, 2 behind his teammate Nolan Perry, who continues to rack up the accolades. He's the 2nd straight month. He's the Blue Jays Player Development Minor League Pitcher of the Month. It's a 108 ERA across the 5 starts in Vancouver with the C's, 40 strikeouts in 25 innings. He also debuted on Baseball America's list of top 100 prospects yesterday, checking in at number 85. The C's return home Tuesday for a 6-game set at the Nat. Sadly, the right field patio is not going to be ready until later in June. We will let you know the exact date when that new facility and great addition to the Nat opens, because while part of that terrace is reserved for groups, we told you this as the season was getting underway, many of the seats in that area are first come, first serve. It will be a fantastic view and the place to be later this summer. We'll let you know. Tuesday, Addison Barger bobblehead night. It's almost sold out already. I think 75-cent hot dogs have something to do with that. And Jiminy Crickets, Cal Raleigh could be there. What a day at the Nat on Tuesday.
I like it.
Get your tickets. Get them now. 604-872-5232 or CanadiansBaseball.com.
The C's are one of only 3 teams in the Northwest League that has a plus run differential, but everybody in the league is chasing Eugene, who have a 9-game lead here in the first half standings.
Eugene has a few very good prospects.
Now, they've lost back-to-back games, so maybe this is the start.
What's wrong with them?
Yes.
The beat goes on for the New York Knickerbockers. Some idiots had the Spurs sweeping this series.
They had an 11-point lead in the second half.
They win game 1 in San Antonio by double D's. That's 12 straight playoff victories for the Knicks, the second longest postseason winning streak in NBA history. Think of all the NBA dynasties, and this lot is number 2 on the list.
San Antonio just looked a little bit anxious in the late stages as they came back. It was a one-possession game in the final 90 seconds, and they just got a little bit anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
the youth.
It was a 10-point lead, but it was a close game, very close game down the stretch.
Jalen Brunson scores 30, and he holds his checks to 1 of 14 shooting. And then there's Josh Hart, his ex-Villanova teammate. They won a national championship there. So he doesn't factor at all in terms of scoring. 3 points, 1 of 5. But how about 15 rebounds, 6 assists, 4 steals, and the Knicks are plus 22 when he's on the court.
Wow.
That's a glue guy right there. That's how you win. This should be fun.
It was a good game.
Yep.
It's a good game.
Yep. And c'est tout pour Félix.
Yeah.
En Paris. Félix Auger-Aliassime eliminated from the French Open in the quarterfinals. He falls to number 10 Flavio Cobolli in 4 sets. He will rue this day.
And he knew it afterwards. He already spoke on this. He was the most disappointed he has ever sounded after.
Yeah. And he should be. He has every right to be.
And he knows. He goes, I know that I need to be a better player than I am. And he wasn't speaking about the match. He was talking
overall.
Globally. He's like, I need to be a better player than I am.
He is up a set. He wins the first set. He's up a break 3-1 in the second set.
Yeah.
He gets broken Kobeli comes back and wins the set, and then just off to the races.
And never really seemed at risk. Never seemed
No.
at risk.
No, and with all the hide seeds out, Carlos Alcaraz sidelined by that injuries, this was Felix's best chance ever to win a Grand Slam. He was the highest seed on his side of the draw. He was the second highest seed remaining in the tournament. He will move up to number 4 in the ATP rankings, and he's now one shy of Milos Raonic's all-time record, number 3. That is the highest a Canadian has ever got. So Felix is right there on the precipice of history. And how about this fun story? Victoria Mboko, the young Canadian rising star on the WTA Tour, has made it official. She is going to team up with Serena Williams coming out of retirement at age 44 to play doubles at the Queen's Tournament, which is a grass court tune-up for the championships, Wimbledon.
Didn't Serena play doubles with Layla as well?
That sounds familiar. I'm not 100%. I will make a
teamed
note
up with
for tomorrow.
Venus to reach doubles quarterfinals. Yeah, she played with Venus. Yeah, okay.
Gotcha. Results of yesterday's poll question. We asked you if Caleb Malhotra's ceiling is second-line center in the NHL. Is that good enough value for third overall pick? Yes or no? People said.
No.
Percentage.
80.
78. Sean, kind of a weird poll because if you take him at 3, you presumably think there is at least the possibility he could conceivably be a 1C. And while questions about his ultimate upside are perfectly valid, I don't think it's fair to suggest that that's his ceiling. Fair enough, Sean. We talked about it yesterday. For some scouts, he's a 2C. For some scouts, he's got 1C upside. If he was unanimously or consensus 1C, he'd be the first overall pick in this draft.
Mm-hmm.
Baconator, voting yes. Recent centers picked third overall include McTavish, Kirby Dach, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Pierre-Luc Dubois. A second-line center seems to be what you should expect in the 3 spot. If the question was, should they draft him, the answer would be no. Therein lies the problem, Baconator. Kirby Dach and Jesperi Kotkaniemi have fallen far short of 2C.
Yes.
Pierre-Luc Dubois had some seasons that have fallen short of 2C.
Absolutely.
Mason McTavish is not yet a secured 2C. This is something people have been talking about in the build-up to this draft with Malhotra. There have been a number of teams that have talked themselves into overdrafting a center in the top 5, whether that's Kotkaniemi, whether that was Barrett Hayton with the Arizona Coyotes the year the Canucks got Quinn Hughes. It makes sense that the center with the positional premium value does get drafted higher, does get overdrafted, but you don't want to be that team.
The high floor guy is also dangerous because I think that's what you saw with guys like Hayton. Like, can he play in the NHL? Will he play? Yes,
still
he will.
Playing in the NHL.
Yes, he
and
will.
He's a good player. He's just not a difference maker.
He's not what you would love out of a
You're
lottery
not giving
pick.
up Quinn Hughes for him.
No.
Mark, you have the worst season ever just to add a second-line center. Third overall should be a very good to great first-liner. I hear you, Mark. You're a little bit at the
Mercy of the draft.
mercy of the draft class, the cohort, the age cohort.
Except if you think there's a first pairing defenseman there, even though maybe that's not your burning desire,
Yep.
you go there.
And Enjoyed said no top pairing D or top line player for any top 5 pick is the goal, and I hear that as well. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate no Easter roast today. Perfect show. This guy. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Appreciate you spending some time connecting with the program. Please do subscribe to all our sorted channels, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Follow on social, X, Insta, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky, live on many of those platforms, noon Pacific time weekdays. And please do support all those community sponsors you hear us talking about. Keep it local.